Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sajaracharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyanaravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Madidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Would you check? I couldn't find the little blue button you're supposed to poke once the recording has started. Is there anything I need to poke to make it work?
I don't think so. Sounds good.
The recording is working.
Okay. Great. All right. What verse are we on now?
271.
271. So we're in the topic of the annihilation of the vasanas. What is it that keeps us from bouncing back into identification with the ego? And another one of Shankara's most famous images is when the ladies in the village come down to the tank to get fresh water. The tank is covered by algae, so they splash the algae away. That's like those moments in satsang, those moments in a retreat, those moments in our deep meditation, when the nature of myself is clear. They get the potable water, and in time, the algae comes back, like my ignorance. So it needs to be conscientiously removed. How? Through steady and continuous identification with the self. And I think it might have been this class, if not another one, where I gave some slogans, some maxims that I have found useful. First one, most important. If I feel like a person, I'm deluded, and everything my mind presents from that point on is rooted in ignorance. Stop it. Introvert your attention. Notice who you are. Drop all striving. It's a spiritual axiom that if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha, the affliction. And that is always attachment, expectation, or identification. Remember the three questions that we get from Yoga Vasishta. Koham, who am I? I am Brahman, not a realized person or a person trying to become realized. Stop it. At this point, what am I? Chidakash, the space of pure awareness. What is this world? Brahma Satyam Jagan Midya. All of this comes about like the dream state. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. That's enough for now. All right, next verse. Will you help us out, please?
Lokavasanaya janto Shastravasanaya picha Dehavasanaya jnanam Yatha vannaiva jayate. People cannot attain realization because of their desire to run after the world, their thirst for unnecessary study of the Shastras, and their anxiety to pamper the body.
So here Shankara has divided vasana into three categories. Does he say deho or deha vasana? I think it's deho vasana, isn't it?
Dehavasana.
Deha vasana, okay. Deha vasana, lokavasana, shastravasana. So the first, the desires that have to do with the body. I call it being fed, effed, and fondled. I want pampering. I want to look good. I want massages. There's nothing wrong with these things. But if we are attached to food, to sleep, all these various things, some of us can't do without exercise. I'm attached to going to the gym. So anything that has to do with the body, it's called dehavasana. Loka means world or people. And these are attachments that have to do with our relationships. Being in love, having a partner, having attention, having acknowledgement, having community, desire to be important in the eyes of other people. All of these are our desires and attachments that have to do on a relational level. Loka.
These could also include like spiritual dimensions as well, right? Like siddhis, for example, if you want to acquire siddhis. Would that be
Well, why would you want them? That's a good question.
Right.
So I can impress other people? And even spiritual materialism would be lokavasana. Oh, yes. Can't you see I'm wearing a dhoti and a kurta? I have a 5-syllable unpronounceable name that my guru gave me. Can you see that I'm glowing? All has to do with other people. Then the last one, shastravasana. The literal meaning is unnecessary study of the scriptures. But the deeper meaning is I think I can figure it out. I was working with a student this past week. Wonderful guy and a voracious reader. He can talk the talk, but he has a hard time walking the walk. He does not have a regular meditation practice. Right now, he and his significant other are having a terrible time. He gets really triggered by her. What does ego say? Well, don't I have a right to get angry if I'm attacked? One of the things that's very interesting, nowhere that I've found in the tradition does it ever talk about rights. Have you seen anything?
I don't think so.
Lots about dharma, what our duty is. I've never seen anything about rights. So it, in the end, is non-figure-outable. Remember way back in the qualifications of a fit student, Shankara said, without knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is futile. With knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is, again, futile. Well, then why are we doing the scripture study? The scriptures are a bridge, a setu. They become the way in which vision of the teacher is transmitted to the student. So from the scripture, from the teacher, perhaps, we get what's known as paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. Brahman is, the self is. But we want aparoksha jnana, direct knowledge. I am that direct experience. But the best way to understand Shastravasana is, in the end, it's not figure-outable. We're not going to get it by reading book after book after book after book. If the books inspire you to practice, then they can be of value. Any thoughts on this? Seventh mantra in the Mandukya Upanishad. Achintyam, unthinkable. Avyapadesham, you can't even really talk about it. Or in second chapter of Gita, the Stita Prajna section, he who knows, meaning he's figured it all out, knows it not. She who knows it not, meaning the mind is stopped. Any questions on these three levels of vasana? It is not important to figure out, is this a lokavasana or a deha vasana or a shastra vasana? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's got some of this or that. Don't worry about it. If I'm disturbed, if I'm identified, I got a vasana. Deal with the vasana itself. It's not that important to understand which category it's in. The value of this is to look at these three areas of our lives: the physical, the relational, and the intellectual. All right, next verse.
Sansara kara grihamokshamicho rayo mayam padina paddha shinkhalam vadanti tatnya pato vasanatrayam yosmadi mukta samupaiti muktam. The wise have spoken of three kinds of vasanas as iron chains shackling the feet. For him who wishes to be liberated from the prison house of this world, he who is free from them attains liberation.
Yes. So these, we can modify Shankara's metaphor. Dehavasana are iron shackles around your ankles. Lokavasana, silver ones. Shastravasana, gold shackles. The point is, we're but what should I do with my time? Leave aside beautification of the body. My concern for social interaction. Acquisition of unnecessary knowledge. If you need to understand a particular computer program to do your job at work, that's a different kind of thing. Instead, nididhyasana, steady, long and continuous meditation on the nature of yourself. What's going to happen when you're in meditation? The technical term is called kshaya, which is the vomiting up of our unconscious tendencies, of these vasanas. Those of you who've done these Goenka Vipassana retreats, their particular map is it shows up in various physical sensations in the body. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah.
Because body and mind are not different. So as you sit in meditation, lust may arise, or fear may arise, or sadness may arise. Or you may get all caught up in thinking about some esoteric point, or start obsessing about people. Just don't do something. Sit there. Gently, but firmly. Bring your attention back to your point of meditation. Om Namah Shivaya. Whatever it is that you practice. Now, meditation is not about superimposing a salve on my ulcerated mind. Oh, I was so stressed out. I need to meditate so I can get some peace. In the beginning, hopefully that will do it. But actually, it's quite different. I like to use the example of deep tissue body work. You can go to a masseur and you can get like a surface feel good massage. Or you can go to someone who does deep tissue work and they're working on a part of your body. They're not hurting us. The knot is in there. That's stored pain. They're releasing it. If you've ever had deep tissue body work, I was Rolf in the 70s. All this emotion comes up. It's the letting go. So sometimes when we sit in meditation and our minds seem very agitated and we just want to get up and do something else, rejoice. Because this is the unloading of the unconscious. It's far more like lancing a boil. And then all that pus, my stinking vasanas, as Swamiji used to call them. Just don't do something, sit there. And don't believe the stories. Anybody else? We have several people in this class tonight who are experienced meditators. Any of you would like to add anything from your own experience?
Sometimes it feels like the unconscious that bubbles up happens not just on the seat of meditation, but also in the world. And the process is, I guess, still the same.
Yes. Did you all hear that? In Zoom land?
No, can you repeat it?
I said sometimes, the knots of the heart rise up not just on the meditation seat, but also out there in the world. And the process to deal with them is the same thing.
Yes. And in fact, sometimes we'll have go on a meditation retreat or have very long meditation. Then we go into the world and we find that all of a sudden we're hypersensitive. And it bushwhacks us. Who's had that happen? Yeah. So it's a kashaya, the unloading of the unconscious, the vomiting up of these unconscious tendencies. This is discussed by Gaudapada in his Karika on the Mandukya, where the source material is. All right, next verse.
Jaladi samparka vashat prabhuta durgandadhuta guru divya vasana sangharshanenaiva vibhati samya Vigdhuyamane sati bahya gandhe. The captivating fragrance of the agaru, agulokam, which gets enveloped by an insufferable stink created by its contact with water, again manifests itself as soon as the enveloping smell is entirely removed by scrubbing.
So, what he's talking about is sandalwood. This is the ancient name for sandalwood. And old-timey days, I don't know if they do this now, but in the sandalwood forests, they would cut down the trees, trim off the branches, and then in order to take them to the mill, where it would be put into sandalwood paste or a murti, they would float them down the rivers. And the bark is still on them. And what would happen is then the logs would absorb the water from the rivers and they would start to rot. And it would be an awful stench. So when they finally got to the mills and they would take the logs out of the water, what do they have to do? I think it's called an adze. Is that right? The thing they use to scrape wood?
I don't know.
I think it's called an adze. Anyway, you scrape and scrape and scrape, and then that mushy surface stuff starts to scrape off. And underneath is the fragrant sandalwood. Or to use another metaphor, some of you may have seen things on the television about the Spanish galleon, the Atocha, that was sunk and rediscovered. I think it was in the 20th century, not the 21st century. But anyway, they were bringing up these treasure hunters, these precious things. And one of them was this cross-shaped thing. And it was all encrusted with barnacles and stuff. So they soaked it in this special solution that would loosen all the accretions and things like that. And underneath was this gold crucifix set with precious gems. Just an exquisitely beautiful thing. So both of these images talk about the nature of our minds. They are encrusted by the stench of our vasanas. How do I know if I have a vasana? Varana Shakti, non-apprehension of my essential nature. Vikshepa Shakti, I think I'm a person and I've got a desire. So that's how I identify it. What do I need to do? Just don't do something. Stand there. Sit there. Don't suppress. Let it come to the surface. Let it shake, rattle, and roll. Just witness it. Do your best to stay identified with the witness. Over and over and over. There is no more efficacious methodology for vasana purgation than this jnana abhyasa, practice of knowledge. Any thoughts on the practice? Next one.
I think the next verse was supposed to be read along with the previous one. So I'm gonna.
Okay.
Anta Shritananta Duranta Vasana Dhuli Vilipta Paramatma Vasana Prajnani Sangharshanoto Vishuddha Pratiyate Chanda Gadhan Vatsputa. The fragrance of the Supreme Self, like the fragrance of sandalwood, is covered by the dust of unending vasanas deeply ingrained in the mind, and is again clearly perceived when it is purified by a continuous scouring with knowledge.
Yes. So this jnana abhyasa, not just repeating Ayam Brahman, Ayam Brahman, Ayam Brahman. That's just a waste of speech. It means watching, watching, watching. Sakshi Bhava. Take on the attitude of the witness. And when craving arises, see it for what it is. It's a spiritual hangover. That's what it is. If I drink cheap champagne Friday night, I have a headache Saturday morning. The fool thinks, oh, I must have a touch of the flu. Likewise, I try to sit and desire, agitation, restlessness arises. Oh, I must need people, places, things, and conditions in order to fix the feeling of discontent. That's ego strategy. And all that does is reinfect the mind. Instead, weep. Be with the grieving. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Deeply understanding what is the cause of my suffering. The cause of my suffering is kama, craving itself. Do you want to be permanently free from that tyranny? How do I be permanently free from that tyranny? drop it. Let it go. If you can, tune up the mind. Retire into the self. And if you can't, and the mind extroverts, and you can't help but go after the world, at least, as Shankara says, don't embrace a rotting corpse thinking it's a beautiful bride. Don't have delusions about why you're unhappy. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Anatma vasana jalai stiro bhutatma vasana nityatmanishtaya tesham nashe bhati swayam sphuta. Innumerable desires for things that are the not self cloud the desire for self-realization. When these have been destroyed by being constantly established in the self, the Atman manifests all by itself.
Yes. So this is the work to do. If I want to remove the superimpositions, so I have clear, effortless knowledge of my self nature, so the mind stays home and is not afflicted by desire. The price tag is to give up my attachments to the world. Now, I had a phone conversation with a student about a year ago. She was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And she once again had a broken love affair. And she'd been reading some Tantra texts. And she said, I thought in Tantra you could have your cake and eat it too. You could be in the world, go after the world, enjoy the world, and still do sadhana. And that is true. But Tantra is the more painful path. Why? Knock yourself out. Go after the world. Or as Vidyaranya says, may you have a long life. Swamiji used to say, go after the world, and then he would laugh diabolically. Let it kick you in the teeth. Let it drop you again and again. And he says, it's the only way to kill the ego. The best example of this we find in the 12-step traditions. Nobody comes into an AA meeting on a good day. People come into an AA meeting beat to crap. They're finally sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they've given up the vain attempts to try to make drinking and drug use work. So they have developed the desire to stop drinking and using. This is brilliant yoga. That's just one little corner of life. Again, try to fix other people. Knock yourself out. Try to control the world. Try to be satisfied with money, property, and prestige. Go for it. This is the way of Tantra. And if you're like me, you'll get a nickel's worth of pleasure for 95 cents worth of work. And it always slips through our fingers. So Jnana Yoga is the path of insight. I have enough experience of the world to say, I'm not going there. It's like all these young people who come into AA. They don't have to have the 30 years of rock bottom suffering that the street winos have gone through. They've suffered enough to let it go when they still have a job, they still have their health, they still have a home. So those of us who take the path of sannyas, the path of Jnana Yoga, both the Tantrika and the Jnana Yogi, both must give up the world if they want steady wisdom. You can do it through the school of hard knocks, or you can see the dynamic and do it through insight. Sometimes the vasanas are too strong. We have no choice. We have to live them through. Prarabdha. And we'll get to how to deal with that later on down the road. But for much of the world, if you clearly understand what the problem is, life, the way most people live it, is dukkha, as the Buddha said. What is the cause of my suffering? Samudaya satya. The truth of arising. It is kama, craving, raga, passion for things, dvesha, aversion, trishna, thirsting, spriha, sangraha, attachment. All these various words for jonesing for the world. I want to be fixed. I'm so unhappy. I need release. All that does is keep the karma chakra rolling. Samsara over and over and over. Freedom from suffering, freedom from desire is freedom from suffering. Noble truth number 3. The yogi pays attention to the point of pleasure. We discussed the Anandamaya Kosha. Understanding deep sleep. Understanding those moments in meditation when everything falls away. I do not need a craving mind in order to be happy, but I do need a craving mind in order to be miserable. Noble truth number 4, Marga Satya. Can I be permanently free from the tyranny? Yes. The Buddha said it, Upanishad say it, Shankara says it. It works. But just like the addict, alcoholic, oh, I'm just trying to get to the place where I do enough cocaine and enough alcohol to balance each other out. I'm just having a problem finding that. I'm not making this up. I hear these stories. And people wreck their lives with that kind of idiocy. You and I have the wrong relationship. I don't have a relationship. I have the wrong house. I have the wrong job. I have the wrong body. I have the wrong friends. I live in the wrong city. No end. No end to what the mind is capable of creating. Now, one of the things Swamiji used to say, I've never researched whether or not this is still true, but he said that throughout India, there's only one temple to the god Brahma. You know if that's true?
I think so.
What?
I think so, that's true.
Yes. Lots of temples to Lord Shiva, lots of temples to various incarnations of Vishnu. Why? Nobody has any trouble coming up with new thoughts. We never need to propitiate Brahma, the creator. The mind is constantly coming up with crap. Sustaining those thoughts, Vishnu, getting rid of ones I don't like, Lord Shiva, Rudra. That's the problem. That's what we're going to strike at the root of. Through this process of annihilation of the vasanas. Now, anytime you tune up the mind, notice your self-nature. You get a taste of that bliss. It burns millions of vasanas. More than chanting the name of the Lord, more than doing service, more than acting according to your swadharma, more than doing puja, more than going on pilgrimages. Those are helpful. But nothing is as efficacious because it strikes at the root of what a vasana does. The first power of a vasana is a varana shakti, the veiling power, the non-apprehension of my essential nature. I can tune up the mind, keep things introverted, notice who I am, keep the mind from compulsively extroverting it. This is an advanced practice. Some of you are ready for it, others not yet. It's okay. But I would be doing you a disservice if I did not tell you the truth of what it takes. Any thoughts or questions about what we've said? Next verse.
Yatha pratya Gavasthitam manaha tatha tatha munchati brahma vasana. Nisheda mokshe sati vasananam atmanubhuti pratibandha shunya. To the extent the mind becomes steadily established in the subjective self, to that extent it leaves its desires for the objects of the world. When all such desires completely end, then there is the clear, unimpeached realization of the self.
So early on, I think you probably remember me saying self-realization is not difficult, but it's very rare. And it's very rare because nobody wants it. I think I want self-realization. Plus the world. I'm sorry, they're mutually exclusive. Keep the mind deeply introverted. Remember our qualifications of a fit student. Vivekachudamani, discriminate, the dispassion, then the tune-up practices. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. Shama. Don't let the mind be pulled out by seeing the objects of the senses. Keep it introverted. Don't let ideas, Dhamma, arise in the mind and push your mind out and into action. Uparati, sense withdrawal, where Shankara says the best uparati says you're moving through the world. Sense objects don't create any vrittis in the mind. We're content with peace. There's no magic bullet. There's no pill. It's adhyasa. No, not adhyasa. Abhyasa. Practice. Remember what Arjuna says, oh Krishna, trying to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. Krishna says that's true, but it can be done through practice. Practice always informed by insight, not some moral position. Not trying to be a goody-goody. It comes from a deep understanding of the cause of my suffering. Next verse.
Section 54. End superimposition the means.
Yeah.
Swatman yeva sada sthitva mano nashyati yoginaha vasananam shayakshataha swadhyaya sapanayam kuru. Being ever fixed on his own self, the meditator's mind ends. Then there is a complete cessation of vasanas. So negate entirely your superimposition.
Now we're moving into an area. We're starting to talk about intimations of samadhi. And he's going to thoroughly discuss the various kinds of samadhi. And the term he's used here is manonasha, which literally means the destruction of the mind. So the metaphor that Swamiji used to use, it is like a balloon filled with hydrogen or helium. tied down by tiny little threads. Each one of these threads is like a vasana. Snip, 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 snip. We have no idea when it's the last attachment. But when the last vasana is, like the balloon going up into the upper atmosphere, it expands and expands, and pop. There's no personal self anymore. It's gone. Now, this destruction of the mind can mean the state of nirvikalpa samadhi, when all movement of the mind ends. Only the prakash, the light of awareness, is there. There is a discussion in the schools of Advaita Vedanta whether or not nirvikalpa samadhi is necessary. I don't know the answer. Swamiji talked about it. This is just between you and me. It certainly was part of my sadhana. Made all the difference in the world. Others, I don't know. Do not make nirvikalpa your goal. Instead, make steady wisdom, knowledge of the self your goal, and continue to renounce attachments. Because the other way of defining manonasha, the destruction of the mind, is we define the mind as being rooted in three ideas. I think I'm a person, I have a goal, and I make efforts toward it. That's the mind. The movement of thought, the presence of perception, is not problematic. So here, when Shankara talks about manonasha, work on renouncing every personal sense of self. Renounce any idea that a change in circumstances is what I need to be happy. And work on giving up this struggle. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more better different. Oh, I have needs. It's nonsense. And if by God's grace, nirvikalpa comes upon your mind, we'll for now leave that up to the Lord. Anybody else have anything they want to add to this? All right, next verse.
Tamo dhyabhyam raja sattvat sattam sattvam shuddhena nashyati. Tasmata sattvamanashtabhya swadhyasapanayam guru. Tamas is destroyed both by Rajas and Sattva. Rajas by Sattva, and Sattva is destroyed on purification. Therefore, solely depending upon Sattva, deny entirely your superimposition.
So if the mind is tamasic, Sometimes you need to stimulate it by desire. So if you're going through a depressive period and you feel thick and dull, activity can be a major antidote. Go help someone else. I don't care what your problem is. Go be of service to someone else. And then Rajas is destroyed by Sattva. Live according to the Dharma. Meditate, pray, do your swadhyaya, your scripture study. Then upon realization of the self, you're brought beyond all. Next verse.
Prarabdham pushyati bapu iti nischitya nischalaha dhairyamalamvya yatnena swadhyaya sapanam kuru. Knowing for certain that your prarabdha will nourish this body, remain undisturbed and with courage, deny entirely your superimposition.
So, we have talked earlier about you should be to some degree established in your swadharma. So right now you may have a job, you may not have a job. But here Shankara is saying, don't worry about this world, about career, about accumulation. Your prarabdha karma, the karma of this life, will take care of everything. We've already talked about our renunciation and the sense of agency. Yeah, but I've got to do this and that, or what do I want to do this, or these are my goals. Nonsense. Guna and karma, qualities of mind, the force of the past. Doesn't mean being indolent. Fulfill your duty, but don't worry about it. Focus your mind on the infinite. The reason Shankar has added this verse is because we're afflicted by the terrible demon Yabat. Yeah, but Jim, I've got to worry about this, or I won't be able to pay the mortgage. Yeah, but Jim, I've got to be concerned about this. Banish that demon Yabat. Keep your vision focused. Rather, introvert the attentive faculty. Keep focused on the self. Let the Lord take care of your equipment. Now I want to share something about grace. When we've reached this state of our sadhana, remember, you and I doing sadhana is not separate from the will of Ishvara. Over and over and over again, I've seen how worldly entanglements just fall away from people. somehow they're taken care of. When they've made the commitment, only this I want, to know the Lord. God's grace will take care of it. See it over and over. The Lord loves his sadhaks, cherishes them. So here, Shankara says, don't worry about the world. It'll all be taken care of. I'm not saying go out and quit your job. If it's time for you to quit your job, you know. I have absolute faith in your intuitive connection to the infinite. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Naham jiva param brahme yadhyavritti purvakam vasana vegata prapta swadhyasapanayam kuru. Quote, I am not the jiva, I am the supreme Brahman, end quote. Thus, by eliminating all that is the not self, deny entirely your superimpositions which manifest through the propulsion of your past urges.
So keep negating. I am not the agent. I'm not the experiencer. No personal sense of self is real. I am always the untouched, uninvolved, changeless witness. This is jnana abhyasa, practice of knowledge. Not just in 20 minutes in the morning, throughout the entire day. All right, next one.
Shrutya yuktya swanubhutya jnatya sarvatnya matmanah kvajeda prapta swadhyaya sapanayam kuru. Having realized your own self to be the self in all through scriptures, by reasoning, and from your own direct experience, deny entirely your superimpositions, even when a slight trace appears.
Yes. So don't flirt with attachment and egoism. If you get bushwhacked, don't worry about it. Drop it, go on. Deny completely your superimpositions. Vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses, and identification with all forms of self, starting with the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a powerful person, I don't control. Constant vigilance, constant practice. We have to really, really Now, when we started this text, one of the things I said was, if you will do everything Shankara suggests, I can virtually guarantee self-realization. Unfortunately, many of my students hear, if I read everything Shankara says, I'll get realized. So it's at this point where frequently our experience and the teaching start to diverge a bit. Okay. But you at least know this is the next level of practice. You're not ready? No problem. Go out there and revel in the world. And as you do your best to maintain the viewpoint of Sakshi Bhav, the witness. Notice when you're craving and it hurts. Know why. Notice when you satisfy a desire. Own your ananda. It's not in the people, places, things, and conditions. It's a taste of my self-nature. And if you're like me, in time you'll see the world's just too little. Trinkets and baubles at best. I want the pearl of great price. I want the peace that passes all understanding. I want the kingdom that's not of this world. I want the Chintamani, the wish-fulfilling gem, not worthless pieces of glass. All right, we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha.